Good morning and welcome to the U.S. History Daily News.
We are your reporters for today. My name is Kylie Ostro.
And my name is Bella Rodriguez.
Today we will be talking about the immigration during the industrialization in the United States. The first wave of immigration started in the 1830s and 1840s because factory jobs were becoming available. The second wave started in the late 1800s and early 1900s because people wanted to better their lives. Immigration changed the nation socially, culturally, and economically. There was a huge population growth between 1880 and 1900. In 1880, the population was 50 million, and in 1900, the population was 76 million.
So the first wave of immigrants was called the Old Immigration Wave. In this wave, industry was in the Northeast, so most immigrants moved to the Northeast. In 1820 and 1880s, over 9 million immigrants came to the United States. Most immigrants came from West European countries. Some examples are Germany, Great Britain, and Ireland. In the 1850s, over 25,000 Chinese immigrants moved from Asia to the West Coast. This was called the California Gold Rush. The second wave was during the Second Industrial Revolution. During this wave, there was need for more workers for mines, factories, expanding railroads. Immigrants from Europe that came from Eastern and Southern Europe, like Greece, Russia, and Italy, had different culture than early immigrants. Catholic Jews and Orthodox Christian were some of their religions. Over 5 million people came to the U.S. in the 1880s.
Now I will talk about why immigrants came to the United States. There are many push and pull factors that made them come. A push and pull factor is a condition that drives people from their homes and/or pulls them to a new area. Push factors were escaping war, poverty, and starvation. For example, in Ireland, they had starvation because the potatoes were going bad. Pull factors, some of them were political and religious freedom, but mainly it was for economic reasons, such as secure jobs or land. In the Midwest, they had open space for farming, which drew Germans. The industrialization created jobs in the cities, which caused people to go to the cities. But in the West, there was Chinese discrimination, which caused the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. This prohibited Chinese immigrants from coming into the United States. It was supposed to only last 10 years, but it ended in 1943.
So now I'll be talking about what happened after the immigrants arrived in the U.S. Overseas journeys were hard because it was dirty, cramped, and people became very ill. Immigrants mainly came through Ellis Island in New York Harbor. They had to be inspected for diseases and interviewed about their background. If they had a disease or certain political view, they were refused to enter. In 1924, they had processed over 17 million people. In Angel Island, San Francisco, immigrants from Asia were still limited because of the Chinese Act. People could only enter if their father was a U.S. citizen, but many people forged papers to get in. Japanese immigrants from Hawaii worked in sugarcane fields. They wanted a better economic opportunity. Many citizens did not like them. Gentlemen's agreement was between the U.S. and Japan. Japan agreed to limit unskilled immigrants, and the U.S. agreed to end separation of white and Japanese kids in schools. And we'll be right back after these commercials
From our sponsor.
This is sponsored by Donald Trump. He loves immigrants.
Trump train.
Choo-choo!
And we're back. Now I'll be talking about what the immigrant experience was like. Most immigrants came with their families, but sometimes the family would send one member, such as the father or the son, to the United States first to set up a life, and then they would send for the rest of their family later. When they got to the United States, they had to find jobs and homes. Some immigrants went to the Midwest for open land, while most went to the urban centers and settled in neighborhoods with people from the same country so they could maintain their cultural customs. Life was hard. They had low-paying jobs and long hours. City people lived in crowded apartments that were in poor buildings. They worked in dirty and dangerous factories, shops, and mills called sweatshops. Few people could start their own business. Most worked in unskilled jobs such as the garment industry or construction. In the West Coast, Chinese people worked in gold mines and then railroads. They were very dangerous and very low paying. Few opened their own business.
Lastly, we'll be talking about how immigrants were viewed by the U.S. government and citizens. At first, the United States welcomed the immigrants that would work long hours with little pay. Then the Americans, some known as nativists, started to oppose. They thought that immigrants would take their jobs. In 1917, Congress passed a literacy test to keep people who couldn't read English from entering the United States. The Immigration Act of 1924 reduced annual immigration quota for each nationality to 2% of 1890 census figures. It restricted immigrants from South and Eastern Europe and banned Asian immigrants.
Thanks for watching. Join us next week on
U.S. History Daily News.